Hey guys, Teresa Barber with Sippie Couture. Welcome to my channel and thanks so much for watching. We're going to get right into how we did this Milky Way tumbler, guys. This one was a change up from how we normally do. We only use that one color glitter and let the colors of the Milky Way kind of speak for what the design kind of leaned towards, I guess you can say. So I hope you enjoy this. Let me know if there's any other tutorials you want to see down in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share this if you know anybody who's looking to achieve this. Don't forget to join our Sippie Couture community Facebook group. We have live coupon codes and giveaways, guys. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon. All right, so for this part, I like to put a bit of epoxy, and not a ton where this glitter is really going to slide around a lot, just enough to really hold it in, because I do use a few chunkier bits in here. So we are going to smooth this in. Like I said, a fairly healthy coat compared to what we usually do for the epoxy method. Grab my heat gun and help just to even out that coat. I don't want to keep piling it on, especially when I have this, a bit on here. I'm just going to heat it up and use what I have on here to move around. For the bottoms, I don't do the bottoms of my tumblers. I go over that pretty good on how to do the bottom of the tumblers. I think there's a YouTube that I've done on that. If so, I'll link it in the descriptions. But this will kind of get, and I'll show you how I do, actually, you know what, I don't have one of how I do the bottom of wine glasses, so I will include all those steps in this one as well for you. But the regular tumblers, like the regular skinny tumblers, there should be a tutorial on that. All right, we're gonna let this spin for a little bit, just get it to even out, and then we'll come back with glitters. All right, so this is gonna be all whites on the bottom. If you've ever noticed how I do my Milky Ways, I use a bunch of different glitter colors on the bottom, but since this kind of has this kind of Saints vibe to it, I wanna go all white glitter with black and gold at the top. I'm starting with April. It is one of the Birthstone series from Mr. Nola's Glitter. And I'm going to kind of lightly dust that, just kind of in a swirl type pattern. I like putting down some of these chunkier ones first. That way they really grab on into there. Make sure this bottom kind of matches. A lot of times with chunkies, and I forgot to do it just now, what I'll do is I'll dump the first bit out on my paper, because I find that from it kind of sitting in there, some of the smaller bits of glitter will fall to the bottom, and then my first dump will be a bunch of chunkies. This one actually worked out perfect, so didn't have to do that this time. Next, I'm using Westbank, also from Mr. Nola's Glitter, and I'm going to line the sides of that one to kind of brighten it up. Knock that off. The next mix I have that I'm going to use is really, really fun. So when I first started out, I forgot where it was from, but somebody had something called Rome, and it was a bunch of whites all mixed together. And as I've ran out of that one over time, this is now just a dump jar of all of my whites. I kind of, I do glitters kind of by dump cup. I dump cup by glitter color is what I meant to say. And everything that kind of gathered on a sheet of paper a few times, I just added that into here, and I just keep remaking it. It has, what's definitely in here is Westbank Junior. There's some April in here. What is the other color? There's one in here that's a bunch of shards, and I just used it the other day. I use it in the Christmas ornament that I did over at Nola's, and I forgot the name of it. It's really, really pretty though. Earth Odyssey. There's some Earth Odyssey in here, and that's what's giving it that really bright, fun look. All right, so dump this aside. Next, I'm gonna put in Garden District. Garden District is a really, really pretty bright white glitter. It has a bit of sparkle to it. You can see how it kind of brightens everything up. And right next to that, to Westbank, kind of that pearl look of Westbank, it gives a really, really fun contrast. So get that through here. I'm going to dump a little bit throughout the middle of April. just to help fill in some of those gaps. Sometimes with those chunky glitters, you kind of have those gaps in there. So we're gonna help fill that in. I'm gonna go again right here with Westbank. And then we'll take a look at it and see where we are with the colors. And this is what's really good about having this, I named it Tea Room. That's what's good about having this one right here, is that as this stuff kind of falls off, I can go ahead and just remix this whole thing. Get that through. Really love Garden District and how it just sends kind of that brightness through there. I'm going to see if I can get some more of the chunky to stick in that part. So it isn't complete stripes of color, it kind of all mixes in to different sections. Dump that over real quick. I'm going to bring in April one more time just to make sure I have everything with really good coverage. There's a bunch of different little pieces in here that will fall and get stuck. Since we used a good amount of epoxy, it kind of grabbed onto everything and it's laying down real nice. If you wanted to add a flash to this, a really good one to grab would be Southern Belle. That one is absolutely gorgeous. It's like a high flash silver. It's like having mirrors. Alibi. Southern Belle has a bit of an opal shift to it. Alibi is the one that's like broken mirrors. It's amazing. All right, I forgot to rip parchment paper, so excuse the noise. And now I'm going to take this and just lay this glitter down. Oh, a piece of rose gold in there. All right, so now I'm going to take this and just lay it down. We don't want to have to fight with this chunky glitter later, so taking a minute to use your parchment paper and lay it down right now is the best thing you could do for your sanity. When you're doing this, if you use too much epoxy and you go to tap it and you pull your parchment paper away and it has a bit of glitter stuck to it, what happened is that your glitter soaked through your epoxy and you remove some of that glitter. It's not a big deal if that happens. Do not panic. Just drop some more glitter down and you'll be fine. All right, that is done. Look how easy that was. And I kind of use that same little method for laying glitter, whether I'm doing a ton of colors or just one. I kind of do my chunkies first and kind of fill in kind of alternating matte colors and some of the chunky ones, and it comes out super pretty. So this is speed dry epoxy we're using, which is great because it gives me about 2 hours. And then I can go on with another coat. Like this can be a done in a day design. You know what? Done in 2 days design, because we're gonna have to wait for it to sand it and get the next little coat of stuff on there. So, well, the final things, if they need a name on it, I'm gonna have to check that. Sorry, I'm all over the place. But this is gonna sit, and we'll be at this in a few hours to get some more speed dry on it. All right, super easy, quick step that we're doing right here. We're just getting a layer of epoxy on over this glitter. And then we will let this cure before we start the marble method over this. That's just to make sure that this glitter is locked in and it's not going to move. There was one time I did try to cheat and just went straight with my marble method right here. And it kind of pulled up some of the glitter. Like I've always tell you guys, I'm a little aggressive. So kind of digging my little silicone tool in there to really get the marble detailing the way I liked it. I scraped up some of that glitter. So now I just put just a thin layer down just to make sure this is set in place. If you wanted to go spray paint this, just clear matte or gloss spray paint, you could definitely do that. I just like to get this layer of epoxy on here. I'd rather that over the spray paint, because even with that, I'm stupid aggressive. All right, use my heat gun real quick. Make sure I have a bit out of there. I'm not doing the bottom of my tumbler. Like I said, I don't do the bottoms, but I will show you how this gets done. After this step, actually, we'll clean up that bottom. And then we're gonna grab our torch real quick, and we're just going after the bubbles. This is speed dry epoxy. We're not going to have a lot of bubbles with this. The more you massage it and kind of work this epoxy around, the quicker those bubbles will kind of off gas pop to right to the top and pop for you. If you have a lot of bubbles and need a little more assistance, grab your torch. Just remember that your torch is going to pop the bubbles, your heat gun is going to move the epoxy. So we'll be using the heat gun a little more in the next step, but we're still going to do that marble method with speed dry. I love doing it that way. That way those lines stay exactly where I put it, because I kind of do have it a little more strategically placed rather than kind of free flowing. So let this sit for a few hours, and then we will come back to trim off the bottom, clean up the top, and start marbling. I'm going to go through and trim off the bottom of this. I kind of started and I realized my blade wasn't sharp enough, so I switched it out. I'm going again. So we're going to just go around in a circle. Like I said, I don't do the bottom of these tumblers. I just got tired of fighting with it. There was a few times where it wouldn't come out level, and it's not worth the hassle to me anymore. So I just clean them up. I either use my cup edging tool, or I just get a razor and I go along the bottom. Whenever I'm doing skinnies or curved tumblers, I use my cup edging tool from Wicked Shimmer. For this, I'm just going to use my craft knife. I'm going to go through, trim it all the way around like that. And when I have this on an angle like this, what it does is it's cutting back just a little of that glitter that goes around the bottom of that curve, if that makes sense. So we're going to keep it at an angle and go through and trim this off. And I'm sorry guys, like I know I don't have the cleanest, prettiest hands of all the tutorial people, but I don't have time to go get my nails done and stuff. Like I have to keep working. And I don't know, I'm so used to having my nails short and working with my hands and without gloves for the most part, that I don't know, when it comes time to use them, I'm all thrown off. All right, so I have that trimmed back a little. So now, very carefully, we're gonna take this craft knife and we're gonna go, I might have to go a little, might have to angle it a little more. We're gonna go through and just cut down in a straight line around the bottom. When you hold your blade on a certain angle, it'll somewhat give you a straight line. Like you'll have your guide of where to go. And then this part is just trimming off kind of those pieces of glitter that are a little, I was gonna say stragged. I don't even know if that's a word. Ragged, straggly, stragged. It's a word now. All right. I feel like I'm gonna be wearing safety glasses because I always break off the tip of this X-Acto knife. Like 100% of the time, it snaps off. I think I really might end up starting wearing safety glasses for this part, because it's like, you know, it goes really sharp to a point. It always snaps off on me. It's kind of scary. Go a little more. Point this away from me. That way if it does snap, it goes to you guys, not my face. Go a little more. And kind of just knock that part away as you go around. And it looks about here is where I started. So now, to see if we got it all, our dry baby wipes that I always absolutely love. And we're gonna have my fingernail in here. And I have acetone on this, and I'm just going around the bottom. This is a part that will really show you what you missed. Like we're going around, and there's that piece right there that I didn't cut through. I had to geode, like removing paint off of a few Mardi Gras tumblers, so my hands are like just covered in paint. All right, so now we're gonna make sure we have this bottom cleaned off really, really nice. Take your acetone, use your fingernail with it being covered, go through and scrape off the bottom of this. The times that I need to, I use a sharp X-Acto knife and I kind of pop it off, but I don't wanna run the risk of scratching up that stainless and then have it kind of look like it has scuffs on it, where it just looks kind of beat down. All right, so that is how I leave it. That's the bottom of this. What I am gonna do is, in this part I'm not gonna do on camera because I do not do this inside. I'm gonna go out into my garage. I have a 60 grit sanding sponge. I'm going to sand around my whole tumbler, just get off kind of those sharp edges. If you're, oh look, I had paint from another cup that I did that this was close to. Remember it touching that. All right, so what I'll do is I'll go through with a 60 grit sanding sponge, sand down any parts that's super, super rough. If you wanted to skip sanding before this next step, you can, because this next layer of epoxy will cover it. But I know that there's a few big bits that are gonna bug me, so I'm just gonna go knock those off really quick right now. But just don't do it if you have like really flat pieces of glitter sticking up, because you run the risk of sanding off that top layer of glitter. But I'm going to take also my little edging tool, not edging tool, my Dremel and flap wheel, and I'm going to angle it and I'm going to trim away this top rim. That way, as it seals, it'll have a nice clean edge on the top. And then we'll go on with our layers of epoxy and the marbling. We're going to do this next step of the marbling with speed dry epoxy. As I do every step, I have my gold alcohol ink, I have some black paint, white dye, and some gold paint. And this is where I'm going to kind of move quick, because we need to get this all in here without it setting up on us. So I only need 3 cups. I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm going to go ahead and start off by getting a layer of epoxy on here. I want this to be able to move around. I want this marbling that I'm doing to be able to have something to flow around on. There is a way that you can do this step if you don't want your colors to mix. Don't put down a layer of epoxy and just start dropping your inks, and it looks really, really cool. I actually use that method for a shark design that I do. When I don't want the marbling to really come together. I want it to stay separated and not have those colors combined. For this one, I do want it to kind of move around a bit. So I'm going to put a layer of epoxy, nothing too heavy, just a thin coat. And then I will separate this to get colors in it. I probably could have had the colors poured out and then added the epoxy, but this is the order I chose. All right. I have this black paint. It's black 3.0, and it is an amazing, amazing paint. I like using it for this marbling because it gives a ton of depth. Black does tend to take over, so we're going to give that the smallest bucket. We don't need a ton of anything, so just a little of each color would be perfect. Get a little white in here. If it wants to come out, just a drop. And then I'm going to add this gold alcohol and like a little kind of drop of gold paint. And I never have an issue. If you add too much paint into your epoxy, then you'll kind of have a problem with it not quite setting right. Because of just too much stuff going in there, but the way that I do this, I've never had an issue. Mix up that black. Go super, super light with the black, guys. That is going to take over. If you're not careful, it will really get away from you. And then mix up this white. I'm kind of thinking my gold may be too light. Let me see if I can add a little. Like, if you could see the drop that's on there, that is all of that I use. There's other epoxy on that stick, but I mean, it's just like half a pea size drop. Okay, and I'm weird, so I like this going that way for this step. And I'm gonna start with my white, and I'm gonna hold it kind of up and let it just drizzle a really, really like pencil thin line. The further away you hold your popsicle stick, the more of kind of a, like a ragged marbly line that you'll get. I'm always super cautious to make sure that I'm dragging this kind of from the very top to where it's going off the bottom, so it doesn't like end like it does for that part. If that went too much, you can scoop it off. All right, we're gonna drop in this gold next. This gold is a little light. I might still have to add a little more. A more to that. I did have a really, really good additive that I ran out of. The other option, if you don't want to use paints and dyes, you can use, I need that to be darker, you can use micas. Add a little more there, and then I'm going to go in with this black. And remember, this black will go crazy on you, so be mindful of that when you're drizzling that on. I need it to connect there. There is some room for error in these designs, so don't be too worried about it. You can scoop off paint that you don't want. Now, I had someone the other day ask me how I get my lines wispy, and this is what I do for this next step. I take my gloved finger and I just go and I smear together the white and the gold. Or if I'm doing a regular marble, it would be the white and silver or white and rose gold or whatever that accent color is. Kind of just squiggle it across. And then I'll take the black where that kind of meets and I'll focus on the black. I needed to have, we're going to fix that. I needed to have an alcohol wipe handy, and I don't. So we're going to do that, and then we'll also take what's on our glove, and we'll drop that kind of in between some of the colors. That way, you know, it's not just black and a few stripes. It does kind of play through the design. I really want that gold to be bolder. I feel like it needs to be a lot bolder. And right now what I'm just doing is I'm looking for spots of where that line of epoxy went. Use a different finger now. Where that line of epoxy went that kind of isn't worked through, where you can still see kind of that big line of it. Make this a little darker. Just can't get my gold right on this. I really need to get some gold additive. All right, so now we're gonna go again. Actually, what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to take that and I'm going to tap on my cup, but I'm going to go like super sketchy. Like I'm going to kind of make it look like a rough marbled line. Just let whatever comes out your popsicle stick be the thing that stays. By the time you get to the bottom of this tumbler, you're going to be running out of that, so you may have to stick it back into your epoxy a little more. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing with the white to give me just a little bit of veining. That line went too straight. I'm gonna have to fix it. Right there. Come on. All right, that spot's too empty. I need something to go in that spot. All right, that drip just went sideways, so I'm going to scoop some of that off. This is where you can really get in there and kind of edit this design. There's a few spots that went sideways right there. The options for that is to, when I go sand my tumbler, get all of this kind of starting to be smoothed out for this next layer, next step, like the decal. I can kind of sand down some spots that are too big or has too much color and take that away. So this design can really get a lot of editing through this process. Like you're not stuck with what you put down. If you're into sanding, that is. This needs a white line right there. All right, so now I'm just gonna go through and make sure I like the way everything looks. Let me grab a silicone tool. My silicone tools are dying. They're with paint. They all have blue on it from my beaches that I do. All right, so what I'm doing here is if there's any spots where you want to remove some of this, you can take your silicone tool and scrape it away. Where's my alcohol? Get a bit of rubbing alcohol, a good bit of rubbing alcohol on your dry baby wipe, whatever you're using, kind of go on this angle, wipe it off, and put it on your baby wipe. So I'm going to keep removing this, kind of editing it to how I want. That blob was a little too, just a drop in the middle of the cup, didn't make sense. You can also lift up some sections and move, like right there. I would love to have some black right there. So we'll take some of that. That black is too big. So we'll take some of that. We can drop it right here. See how it's kind of going off like really, really thin? We're kind of moving it down in a really thin section. That piece is weird, so we're going to spread that out. And remember, for this step, if you're using speed dry epoxy, we're kind of getting close to our work time. We can't do much more after this. So kind of start wrapping up what you have in mind for this design. Fix the spots that you really, really hate, and the rest of it is your design. I don't know if I like that gold spot. Like there's one spot that has a bit of gold and not much else to it. Let's see, right here. See if there's a color I can lift from anywhere. Oh, I like everything though. Let me see. That worked. I was able to pull up a little white and black marbly spot from the bottom, and I can put that right through. Oh, I need black right there. All right, time's almost up. As you're going through this and you're kind of positioning where you want stuff, you'll feel your epoxy get a little tougher to push colors through. I need to dip through here. You'll find it a little tougher to get to push colors through, and that's how you kind of know that your time is up. Like you'll feel it kind of grab on just a little bit more. We'll go kind of rough through there. What I need to do is continue that up and tie it into something. Bring that down. Oh, I'm really running out of time. All right, I'm gonna smear this in because we don't want that to look super fresh compared to all the other kind of softer lines. And then I want that glitter to show, so I'm gonna scrape down in there and pull up some of that epoxy. I'm gonna hit it with my torch just to make sure we don't have any bubbles and kind of encourage some of these other spots to move just a little. I like putting my lines in sort of an intentional, kind of drop them intentionally. So I don't want them to move a ton, but to give it just a little natural movement after this step, it really makes a difference. All right, let me take off my glove. Remember that your torch is gonna pop your bubbles. Your heat gun is gonna move it, and get your stuff to flow. But if you want to just use your torch for this step, you can just kind of hit it close to a section and that will get it to go. I don't want this to move a lot. Like I said, I like putting these in a really strategic almost position. So I don't use a lot of heat for that step. It's just enough to make sure I don't have any bubbles and to kind of create a little texture like that. What is it called? I can't think of the name of it. When it has like that cells, when it has cells to it. If you get your torch on that, you can get some cells to go, which would be really pretty in this. Oh, I don't like that part. Move that to the top. All right, and then I have my baby wipe again with some rubbing alcohol, and I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna let this rotate, and I'm just using my fingernail, kind of pushing that up against to really smooth out this epoxy on the bottom, give me a nice seal against that, and also clean off the bottom of this tumbler. Since we kind of did our work on making that bottom look nice, I don't want to gunk it all up with epoxy right now. So we're going to take this minute to just be careful, sit here, be patient, and clean off the bottom of the tumbler. Nothing to this step at all. As long as you have a lot of rubbing alcohol on your baby wipe, it's all going to come off. It will come off and create a really nice smooth line at the bottom. After you do that, then we'll take our torch and we're going to hit the bottom of it, and that is just going to smooth down, like if any edges of that bump too hard and it got kind of rough on the bottom of that epoxy, what that's going to do, it's going to smooth it back down and really give a nice seal to the bottom of that tumbler. And that's it for this step. Let this go. We'll see if it needs to be sanded before we do decals, because I don't like putting decals on any type of like surface that has bumps or texture or anything. So we'll see how much it needs to be sanded, if it's too much and too wavy from this, because Quickset does stay in its spot and you will feel some of the grooves from this epoxy. So if it has too much of that kind of wave feel to it, then I will do another like just a clean layer of epoxy over it to kind of fill in those holes and then sand it. But it really just depends on how this comes together. If you're using regular glass coat epoxy for this step, then it's most likely going to even out really, really great to begin with, and you won't have that much to it. But this is kind of set. We'll let this go, and then we'll be back later with the next. All right, guys, I'm so sorry about that. I kind of got wrapped up in getting this done and out in time for Christmas that I forgot to film the rest of it. So what I did after that layer cured is that I just sanded around my rim to make sure I had a really clean edge for the epoxy to adhere to the top. I cleaned up the bottom really good, and then I went ahead and went on, actually I did sand it a little throughout the whole tumbler just to make sure that stuff was a little level, and then it only needed one coat of speed dry epoxy that filled in any of those ridges, and this ended up with a really smooth, just flawless finish. So I hope you guys like this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see y'all soon.